Hey everybody, we'll see if anybody hops on here. This is just kind of a very last minute kind of random live that I thought I would just hop on. I came up here, everybody in our house is asleep. The kids are asleep, my husband is asleep, and I just got out of the shower, hence the wet hair, put on my pajamas, so forgive my appearance at the moment, but that's not why we're here. I came up here and I already had a couple patterns cut out, so I decided I was going to do the nap joggers, which I already had cut out for Lowland Kids. If you don't know, I am sewing up every single pair of the Lowland Kids pants and then comparing them. I have 3 pairs of pants left to do, and then I'm gonna take a picture. I did them all in the same size for my daughter. I did 12-month, and I did no, I don't even know. These are not the nap joggers. These are the Playdate pants. So sorry, but they're similarly sewn a little bit. They have like the yoke and stuff, I think. Like I said, I've been sewing a lot of Lowland Kids pants, so I'm pulling up the tutorial. I don't really need the tutorial. It's pretty straightforward if you do a lot of pants, and I just need the elastic measurements, and I'm not doing the pockets in it, so that makes it a lot easier and quicker. So I'm just going to go through and sew these up and kind of go step by step on how you do it. I am using, like I said, I already have everything cut out. This is a cotton spandex French terry from Lowland, or not from Lowland Kids, from Raspberry Creek, one of my favorite fabric shops. Absolutely loved them. This is an older print that I have had in my stash for a while, but it is just so cute. And I'm doing, like I said, I'm doing 12-month in all of the Lowland Kids pants for my daughter, and then I'm gonna do like a little photo shoot and take a picture in all of them, and I'm putting together a spreadsheet with all of the different options and comparing all the pants and the fits. So for these pants, I'm gonna bring you guys over towards my cutting table and kind of angle you down here. So as I mentioned, I am not doing the pockets on these pants, and I just don't like doing pockets for my daughter. They just pop out and they're annoying, and what 1-year-old needs pockets. So for the pants, you're going to have a front, 2 pairs of the front leg cut opposite of each other. You're going to have 2 opposites of the back, and then this pattern also has the option for a back yoke, which I am doing the back yoke. So if you have the yoke, it is one whole piece here, and you can see it's going to get sewn at the top of the back pants. And then I have my cuffs. I am also doing the fold over elastic waistband, so I do not have a waistband piece, and I actually don't even know if it has a waistband option. I think it does. No, it does not. So it only has the fold over option waistband, which that's all things that I'm going to be putting in my little spreadsheet when I compare all of the Lowland Kids pants. I put the different types of waistbands and things like that because everybody has their preferences on them, but it's also not something that's very hard to switch from if it's something that you wanted to add to a pattern. But it's also good to know when you're like buying patterns if it has that option that you want. So you have 2 fronts, 2 backs, your yoke if you're doing the yoke, and then if you're doing the pockets, your front would have a little cutout here, and then you would have 2 pieces for your pocket. You would have the one bigger piece, the smaller piece, and then you would have a binding piece, and then your cuffs. So the first thing we are going to do is we are just going to take our front and back pieces here, and we're going to line up the crotch seams. So if you were doing the back yoke, you are going to have, I'm grabbing my clips, sorry. All right, so got my clips. And if you're doing the back yoke, your crotch curve is going to be a little bit shorter. If not, it's going to be about 3 inches taller depending on your size. And then we're going to do our front crotch seam and pin down there. And you just want to make sure that at the top you can see here how it is a little bit angled up, and that is your waistline, and then down here it's straight. A lot of times, especially like on these, like if you fold them in half, you can see that your inseam is really almost the same as your crotch curve in height. So it's really easy to just get confused and accidentally sew this as your crotch seam, and then everything gets all messed up. So you want to make sure that your top piece, the top of your pieces is angled so that you know that those are your waistlines. So you're just going to sew down these crotch seams and be back. I am making the Lowland Kids Playday pant. It is a jogger. I'm doing the 12-month size. Hi, Parker. How are you? And yeah, that's just what I am working on tonight. So I'm going to just be walking through what I'm doing and how to sew up these pants. So like I said, I'm going to go over to my machine. It's right behind me, and sew up these seams real quick and be right back. All right, so I have those sewn up here, and here's my front. So I'm going to set the front aside for real quick and take out my back piece. So when you open the back piece, you can see I have this curve along here. So now I'm going to take my yoke, and when you do that, you're going to lay it. If you lay it here, you can kind of see how it's going to go together. So I have my curve bottom. Sorry, I'm trying to think. I have the curve here, like kind of like a rainbow, and the higher point is up at the top. So what we're going to do is I'm going to fold it in half, wrong sides together. That's how I like to do it when I have to line it up. And then I'm going to lay this bottom curve on my pant piece, my back pant piece, and I'm going to match up this fold with the seam line I made here and match up the raw edge at that seam. And now I'm going to flip this open, and so you can see how this curve does not match up. So you have to very carefully, I like to work my way out. I'm going to just kind of shift my yoke down and line up those raw edges all the way down, and then I'm going to come over here and do the same. So hi, how are you? Are you guys who are here, are you sewist, seamstress, seamsters? Do you sew, or are you just checking out? Let me know. But once you get this lined up, you're going to take this over to your machine and sew along here. And because of this curve, you can see how it's kind of bunching up here. Just, you want to make sure when it's going under your presser foot that there is no bunching, and that's going to prevent any pleating or anything like that. So just as you go, you kind of just shift this extra fabric away from your presser foot as you sew. So I'm going to go sew that real quick and be back. All right, so I have that sewn on, and you can see now when you flip it up how that looks. And then if you want to, you can top stitch this seam down. You don't have to do that, but always optional. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to leave this open. And ooh, historical garments, that is cool. I saw someone on Instagram the other day that made these most beautiful historic dresses. I don't remember who she was, but they were like just beautiful, big, poofy historical gowns. But we're gonna line up the top here, and we're gonna line up the raw edges down the side seam. And I cut these out trying to match up the stripes, so I'm gonna do that as well. If you had the pockets, you would want to make sure your pockets are laying nice and flat on the front when you sew down the side seam. You're just going to pin down the side seams, and you're going to do that on this side as well, starting up here. And then for this crotch seam, if you're not familiar with sewing garments, the back of your pants is typically bigger than the front, and a lot of people will be worried about that. They'll look here and you can see how this is sticking out about 1/4 of an inch. And they'll be like, my pants don't line up. It doesn't need to line up. It just needs to line up at the raw edge. So there's more room because, you know, the back of your body there's more there. You have calves, you have a booty, you have all of that stuff on the back side of your body, so you need more room. So you're just going to scoot your raw edge over. I like to match up. I did my crotch points already, but match up those, and then I would work my way down and to pin that, and I ran out of clips over here. But then you would just go down this side as well, and then this side. So then you're going to just sew these seams. At this crotch seam, you're going to do it all in one big seam. Start at one ankle, so all the way up, pivot, and then go back down. Medieval gowns, oh yeah, those are really cool. There's so much that goes into those, and the like crinoline and the undergarments and everything. So I wish you the best of luck. If you post it on Instagram and share that stuff on Instagram, or if you share it on your page, let me know. I would love to watch that journey. So I'm gonna go sew up these seams and be right back. All right, yeah, make sure you share, and I will follow you or subscribe or whatever, because I would love to see that. Yeah, you know, they say that stuff isn't made the same, like clothing is not made. Oh my goodness, I'm looking. Okay, I'll get back to that. But the amount of work that went into the historical garments, medieval, you know, even just 60s and those kind of things, there was so much work that went into them. But why I said, oh my goodness. So if you look at this, you can see these bumps on my fabric and the waviness. And that is because one of my children, don't know which one, was playing with my machine and turned my differential all the way down to my serger. So your differential affects how it feeds through. So when you turn it down, it kind of pulls it and stretches it. So I will just give these a good steam and it should be okay. Like I said, these are just for my daughter. They're just a pair of comfy pants. And this is a very stretchy fabric. So if you run into where your knit fabrics are stretching out like that and they're getting wavy, check your differential if you're using a serger. If you're using sewing machine, a walking foot helps decrease that. And then if you still are getting that when you're done sewing, steaming it really well typically will help that. Sometimes things are past the point of help, but a good steam is going to help. So I'm just going to leave it as is now and I'll steam it later. And now we're just going to do the cuffs. We're going to take one cuff and fold it in half. The grain line is going this way, and we're going to just match up this raw edge here, and then we're going to do that same thing with this cuff. And then we're just going to sew down these seams of our cuffs and be right back. Alright, so now my cuffs are in a tube and we're going to take them. I always like to go put my fingers in. This is really the same for bands or any sort of cuffs, and it just depends, you know, it's just a different ratio of the size. But I like to go in at my seams and take my seams, match up the seams, wrong sides together. And some people will twist them and things like that. I don't like to twist my seam here because then you get like weird bulkiness at the fold. So I just leave my seam allowance facing the same way, match it up, and then I'll put a clip in at that seam, keep it lined up, and then I come in to one side and just flip it out, and then now I have my cuff and it is right side out. And then I will do that same thing with my other one. And then put that clip in, flip it, and then I always just kind of like twist it around my fingers and stuff to help get the raw edges lined up. And then I'll mark my other fold so I have my halfway point. If you're doing something larger sizes or bands or things like that, you want to do your quarter points just so that it's extra even. And then I'm going to do this one here, and I hear my daughter fussing a little bit, so I may have to go if that continues. But we are going to, let me check. All right, we are going to get the cuffs added on here real quick, and if I can get to the waistband, I will. If not, I may have to sign off. And so what you're going to do with your cuff is you're going to take the raw edge down here, and I always like to put my seam of my cuff with the inseam of my pants so that it's not on the outside, so it's a little bit more hidden. And my fabric is not directional, meaning that there's not a right way or a wrong way of the print. Some prints have a what is called a directional print, and let me see if I can find one real quick. Like, let's see. Oh, nope. I can't get that one out. All right. So like this one, there's the flamingos on it, and the flamingos are all facing the same way. So this is the right way, otherwise it would be upside down. So your fabric is either directional or it's non-directional or it's tossed, which means like if it was tossed, these flamingos would be like basically like they were tossed on the fabric and they're facing all different directions. So you don't have to worry about the print. Non-directional just means that there's nothing in it that would tell you which way it would go. Like this, the flowers, they're tossed on there. Or like this one, these are tossed because they're just going every single which way, which a tossed is also technically a non-directional, just kind of another name for it. But if you had a directional print, what you want to do to make sure that you're putting it on the right way is when, say you look in your pants here and you would see, so I always like to use the example that you have a person, a full body person. So their feet are going to be at the bottom, their head is going to be up at the top when you look into your cuff or into your pants. And so then to make sure that it is going the right way, when you look into your cuff with the raw edge down here at the bottom, your print needs to be facing the same way. So the feet need to be at the bottom in your cuff. If you have it the other way and it was inside out, the feet would be up at the top of your cuff and your head would be here, and looking in, that person would be upside down. So when you put your cuff in, I'm going to slide it in. I'm going to line up my seam here with my inseam. And this is where, this is where I talked about how I have my seam allowances of my cuffs both going the same direction. I nest my inseam seam. So my seam allowances of my cuff are going this way. My inseam seam is going to go that way. So it distributes the bulk. So I have two seams this way and one seam that way. Where if you twist it, you're still going to kind of have that issue of one side is going to have two seams on it, but then you have it twist at the bottom in there. So that's why I do that. But then I'm going to just take this pin here, my center point, and match it up with my side seam. Now, not every pattern is as simple as just matching it up with the side seams. Typically on cuffs and things like that, it usually is, but like neck bands and waistbands and stuff, a lot of times the seam lines are not your center or quarter points. So you just want to make sure you check that before you attach it. Otherwise, you're going to have uneven stretch and it's not going to lay nicely. But back to the directional thing. So then when you get your cuff in there and you look in, your print on your cuff should continue in the same direction as the print on your pants. So that is the best way that I have found to make sure that your print is the right way. But then I'm just going to add in my other cuff over here. Again, just slide it in, match up my side seams, flip my seam allowance the opposite way of the seam allowance of my cuffs. There's really no right or wrong way. Technically, they say the seam allowances go to the back, but it doesn't really make any difference if you're not top stitching or anything like that. But then you can see my cuff is a little bit smaller than my ankle. So I'm just going to take this over, and when I do it, I'm going to stretch it slightly and sew this all the way around, overlapping my stitches just a little bit at the beginning / end of my cuffs. I'm going to go sew my cuffs on real quick and be right back. So I got those sewn on, and now all I have left to do is the waistband, and that's why I pulled up the tutorial. The more you sew these pants, any pants with cuffs is going to have this exact same construction. The pockets may be a little bit differently, just how it's written in the pattern, but you get really good at doing everything and kind of knowing what you need to do on the more basic patterns. So I honestly didn't even use the tutorial for this, but I do need the elastic measurements. So I need 1 1/4 inch elastic. So let me grab my elastic. I should know by now I've made 20 pairs of pants in this size for this pattern. The width is always different, but not the length of the waistband. Each size is the same. So before you cut your elastic, you always want to exercise your elastic, meaning you want to pre-stretch it and stretch it to the max, because otherwise your elastic is going to end up not being the right size once it's stretched and top stitched. So I need 15.5 inches. So I'm going to just give it a stretch again, stretch it max. If you cut your fabric or your elastic before you stretch it and then measure it again and see if it's stretched. I can almost guarantee that it did. And I'm also going to add in this elastic is the bomb.com. It is, I think it's called the sports waistband. It's from Wawak, and it only comes in 1 1/4 and 1 1/2 inch, but it is the stretchiest and softest elastic I have found. I ran out of it for a while. I buy it in the big, I think this is 25 yards. And this is a newer roll. So you can see this lasts me quite a while, but I ran out and I tried some from like Joann's, RIP, Hobby Lobby, Amazon, and nothing. It just, a lot of it didn't have as much stretch and it was a lot tighter and wasn't comfortable. So this is the real MVP if you can get it, again, from Wawak. And Wawak is my go-to for all things notions. Such good prices if you want to do, I mean, the thing is you have to pay shipping, so I always do make an order, and if you spend like $100, I think it's free shipping, but sometimes it could take a lot to get to $100 depending on what you're buying. Like if you need $100 worth of zippers, that's a lot. But anyways, I digress. So for the elastic waistband, we are doing a fold over elastic waistband. So for this one, you prep your elastic first. I always like to overlap mine just a little bit and the ends, and with a big long zigzag stitch, I'm just going to sew up and down the seams here, right where they overlap, and kind of enclose both of those seams. And I usually will go down and back stitch all the way up and then go down, and I'll go like 3 or 4 paths up and down total. All right, so now it is in the round, and we are nearing the end here. So once I finish these up, I will close out. But if you have any questions or anything, let me know. And when we get to the end, it doesn't have to be about this, sewing, life, whatever, I will come back and answer those before I go. Or you could always leave a comment if you're watching it back, and I would love to chat more sewing. So you can see here how our pants are almost done. My cuffs are here and they're turned out, and then I have the waistband up here. So for pants, the higher side is always going to be the back side, and that's, again, like I said, because you have a booty and they need space to go out and around the booty. So when I do these waistbands, I like to turn my pants right side out, and then I have them with the front facing forward. And I kind of open up my waistline here. And oh, thank you. I know these, they actually look like they're going to be kind of big, but I love this fabric. I think I'm going to have to make a little sweatshirt for my daughter so that it can match. I just think it's so cute. I might do like this teal. I have some French terry in that, and it's just so cozy. But what we're gonna do is I always take my seam of my pants and I do that in my back, and these don't have a center back seam because of the yoke, but if I did, that's just where I would line that up. So I'm just gonna find my center back seam, and that's where I'm gonna line up the seam of my waistband and clip that on. If I did have a seam, I would shift it over a little bit just so that there wasn't that extra bulk of the seam on top of the seam of my elastic. So I would just shift it like half a centimeter or whatever so that it wasn't in there. And then now I'm gonna go and I'm just gonna pull my elastic. This is kind of like what we did with the cuffs where I was talking about finding your quarter points. I'm gonna fold my elastic in half from this point here. And at this fold, I'm gonna match that up to my center front and clip that on. And I'm clipping the top of my elastic to along the top edge of my pants. So when I would like pull it, you can see that it is below the waistline of my pants. And then let's see if these, so here, this is kind of what I was talking about. My side seam, when I match up my front and back points, my side seam it's about 1/2 inch on these. And like I said, this is a 12-month size. So as your pants get bigger, this is gonna become a larger gap in there. So on these, it wouldn't really matter if I just used the side seam, but on larger sizes, it's going to not necessarily cause issues. It's just gonna make your final garment not look so, I don't know. It's just, it won't look as nice and lay as evenly if you didn't do that. But so I find my quarter point here, and I'm just going to put a clip on there. And then I'm going to match these, and where this fold is, match it with my clip. So this is called quartering your elastic or your waistband, whatever it is. You're finding your quarter points and matching them up, splitting it into 4 equal parts. So I found my waistband and my point over here. And just like our cuffs, our elastic is smaller than our waistline. So we're going to stretch our elastic and sew this on. I sew this using my serger. You can do it if you only have a sewing machine. These could all be done on just a sewing machine using a stretch stitch. I do construction on my serger because I do have one. I have a Baby Lock Imagine. If you are looking for a serger, I highly recommend. It's a very old machine, but it is a workhorse. Mine is amazing, and they're around $500 or $600 new, or not new, sorry, used. You can't buy them new anymore. But even like the cheapest of the cheap are like $300. So if you can raise your budget a little bit, I highly recommend it. It has air threading, so you don't have to deal with all the threading, and auto tension, which is amazing. So highly recommend. I bought mine used on eBay probably about 5 years ago, but I love it. I've not had any major issues with it. But I take this over to my serger, I turn my knife off, and then I stretch my elastic as I sew, and I just line up the edge of my elastic, making sure it stays lined up with the raw edge of my fabric, and I feed it through. I pull it from the front and back evenly. You don't want to like yank it through or pull it so it's not feeding through. You kind of just hold it and just kind of guide it. And I don't know if I said, I keep this lined up with the edge of like where my knife would be, so that then the edge of my stitches are right along there. If you were doing a zigzag stitch, you would do everything basically the same. You would just do a really wide zigzag, and you would want the outside of your needle on your zigzag stitch to hit right outside of your elastic. So I am going to go sew this on. I do also increase my stitch length quite a bit when I do this. I think I'd put it to my max, which is a 4, and I sew just all the way around. So I'm going to go do that real quick and be right back. Love to see a shirt. What kind of shirt? Like a t-shirt or like a knit t-shirt? Let me know, because that's something I could do. Definitely. All right, let me sew this waistband on real quick and be right back. All right, so I got this sewn on, and here's a kind of closer look. You can see my stitching all the way up here and then on the back side, so you can't see the elastic from the outside, and that is what we want. You can see then on this side, try to zoom in there, it's all white, so it's kind of hard to see. But now what we're going to do, and this is the last step, so I don't usually use pins when I do this. I've gotten pretty good at this. I do have a like super full in-depth video on my channel of how to do this, and I like zoom in and I take you over to my machine and show you how I stretch it and do all of that. So if you ever want to do that, check it out. I do have one about top stitching, like an elastic casing as well. Those are like, top stitching elastic is like one of my favorite things to do. It just is so satisfying when it's done. But what you're going to do is you're just going to take your elastic. So here is the edge of my elastic. I'm going to fold it over. And when you do that, you want to make sure that where you fold it, it's like hugging the edge of the elastic. You don't want it folded so much that your elastic is folding, and you don't want it too loose that you have extra fabric up here. You want it to be nice and tight up along that top of the elastic. And I usually just do like 4 pins. So I just fold it and put a pin or clip up there at the top, so you can kind of see how it's nice and tight. If you don't have it tight enough, you'll see like here, you can see how it's kind of making those ripples up at the top. But then when I pull it down and around, it kind of goes away. It's going to bunch a little bit just because the elastic is smaller, but it's going to bunch kind of more this way than up. So then I have to go over to my side seams, and at my side seams, I find it on the top and fold it over again. I like to make sure that my seam allowance doesn't twist, so I twist it back in, and then I find my side seam here and match it up with the seam allowance on the inside. And then again, make sure it's hugging it and pin it. And this just kind of makes sure that as we're doing this and top stitching it, that again, it stays even. And then you can do it at the front. And like I said, as you do it more and get more comfortable with it, you may not need all of the extra pins here. I typically don't. And then match up your side seams again. And sometimes you gotta kind of pull it and stretch, because they'll kind of like eat itself, if you know what I mean, like the seam allowance doesn't go all the way out. But now if you fold it in, so you have this folded edge at the top, and it's kind of bunching in places where it's not pinned, but you're going to take this over to your sewing machine, and basically just like you did with your elastic, I like to stitch from the inside of my machine. I put a long zigzag stitch. I do about a 3, and then I do my widest setting, which on my machine it's a 5. Depending on your machine, it may be wider, but a 5 is pretty standard at the very minimum. And I stitch on top of my serging lines here. So my stitches are here, and I try to hit the outside of my zigzag stitch like right at the edge of my waistband. And you could use a straight stitch, or if you have a cover stitch, I don't have a cover stitch, but you could use a straight stitch. You could do 2 straight stitches to make it look like a cover stitch. It's up to you. You could use just a regular straight stitch. There's no reason to worry about it stretching because it's elastic and you're going to stretch it and then it's going to shrink. So you're okay to use a regular straight stitch, but you're just going to take this over to your machine, and I always start in my center back and stretch again as you're sewing. It's kind of awkward at first, but you want to just stretch just enough as you're sewing that everything is laying flat. You don't want to overstretch it so that you're stretching out your fabric, but you want to stretch it enough so that your fabric lays flat. And then you're just going to stitch along there and just, again, guide it through your machine and stop as you need to make sure that your fabric is hugging your elastic. And then when you let go, I always like to make sure that my needle is down in my fabric so that then when I readjust it and pull it again, my fabric doesn't pull through. Because if you lift that needle up and you pull this, chances are you're going to pull it through just a little bit or throw it off on under your presser foot, and then you're probably not going to notice it, but it's just one way to prevent that from happening. And then you just sew, and I just keep everything stretched here, and I sew and feed it through, and then as soon as my bottom hand gets close to my presser foot, I stop and let go, and then I readjust and do it again, and I just do it in small sections like that all the way around. And this is easier to learn to do on these smaller sizes. When you get into like the adult waistbands, it can be kind of hard to keep it even. It's a lot easier to keep things even on little kids' clothes, which is why I always recommend people starting with little kids' clothes when they are learning. Oh, thank you. I actually just painted my nails tonight. I got a gel kit. You can see I have it on my nails still, but I got to clean them up a little bit. I got a gel nail kit for my birthday, and I used to love doing my nails. When I was in high school, I spent way too much time. Don't even want to admit how much time I spent doing my nails, but I like to do my daughters as well. So I decided to go a little bit springy, so we did my daughters and mine tonight. But I'm going to go sew this waistband down and be right back. I'm gonna turn you guys around, and whoa, they are done, and here's the front. And so you can see, so I like to do the zigzag because you can see how it kind of like creates those ripples in there. And when you stretch it, and you can see when they go on, they go away a little bit. But the zigzag just kind of creates ripples for it to go into. And I like that look. Not everybody likes that. Some people like the straight stitch, whatever floats your boat. But these are super cute. And this is really easy, especially if you leave the pockets out. Like, I mean, what was that, 45 minutes? And that was with me spending so much time talking to you. And you don't need fancy machines. This is my sewing machine. This is a Brother, I don't even know what it is, XL 2600i. 10 years old, got it from Walmart for like $100 when I was in high school. And that's what I use for my sewing machine. I have a walking foot on it. It does just fine. I mean, nothing fancy. I mean, I do have my nice serger, but again, it's an old one. And thank you. These, I think, are going to be so cozy. So here's the back with the yoke on there. That's how that looks. And that's kind of for comfort. And it's a fun way to add color blocking and things like that if you wanted to. And yeah, again, these were I keep wanting to call them the nap joggers. Like I said, I have sewn way too many Lowland Kids pants patterns in the last 2 months. And I'm almost done sewing them all up. And the Playdate pants, I keep wanting to call them the nap joggers. I know they're not the nap joggers, but the nap joggers do have the yoke option on them as well, but they also have a front yoke option. So, and let's see, t-shirt with sleeve. Okay, I definitely couldn't do that. I can do a sew along of a t-shirt. I do have a video, it's the Judy tee I sewed up. It's kind of a vlog version that I kind of go through that. It's sewn in flat. If you can check that out if that helps or not. But this was so fun hanging out. You have a brother as well. Yeah, I would like to upgrade my machine just because I want some different features on it. You know, I do a lot of sewing. But this machine has done me well. I really have not had any issues with it. Again, knock on wood. The couple of issues I've had, I have been able to figure out. And that's it. I do recommend. It's a great beginner's machine. They don't sell it anymore, but similar machines, I see a lot of them on eBay, like at Goodwill, on goodwill.com, and those things. But it has everything that you need, stitches, whatever. Like I said, not fancy, but it does what it needs. But I really want a machine with a leg lift, a knee lift. And it's, if you don't know, it has a little like rod that comes down here, and you push it with your knee and it lifts your presser foot for you. So you don't have to like when I was doing this, I'm like finagling it, trying to get it in. You just push it with your knee and your presser foot goes up. You can do what you need to with your hands. So I really want a machine with that, but those come, they used to have them on, like my mom said, even like her mom's basic machines used to have them like in the 60s and 70s. And now if you want one, you have to go up into like starting at like around the thousands for a machine with a knee lift. So maybe someday. But for now, this is what I use. And I actually sewed up a pair of leggings for my daughter on this completely repaired knit leggings with the same type of waistband and things like that. So you're not limited if you don't have any fancy machines. But anyways, thank you all for joining me, tuning in, whether you're live or you watch this later. If you have any questions, again, feel free to let me know. And yeah, check out that video if it helps. Awesome. If it doesn't, let me know, and I will find something else, do a different video on a different pattern for you. And maybe next time I can kind of plan this a little more so that we can have some more people join us. I usually do my lives at night like this because I do it after my kids are asleep, because otherwise it could be chaos. and I don't know how long I would have. So I usually do them after like 8:30 or 9 Eastern time, and then around there. But I don't really have a set schedule. Haven't done a ton yet, but I want to start doing some more lives. It's fun to hop on and be able to chat with you guys. So I will try to plan more in the future and actually like let you guys know beforehand. But other than that, I think it's 11:30 here almost. So I am gonna go get ready for bed, put everything away, and yeah, so check out this pattern again. The Playday pants from Lowland Kids, they have a lot of great pant patterns, and stay tuned. Subscribe if you want to see all the other Lowland Kids pants because I will be sharing them, and check out Raspberry Creek as well. So thanks. Have a good night. Bye.